The arena hung suspended above a gas-choked planet, its walls etched with the scars of 1,000 battles. Alien spectators crowded into tiered platforms, their many eyes reflecting the flickering glow of holodisplays that tracked every move. The old man was flung into the center, landing on jagged metal with a grunt that betrayed neither fear nor pain. Around him, mercenaries moved like shadows, their multi-limbed forms bristling with energy weapons, plasma rifles, and whirring blades. Each step of theirs was calculated, confident, and brutal, as if they had already claimed victory in some preordained cosmic law. The crowd reacted with a mixture of anticipation and hunger, their collective expectation a weight pressing down on the arena floor. He rose slowly, one hand brushing grit from the weathered cloth of his uniform. Scars marred his arms and hands, remnants of battles long past, each telling a story of survival. His head tilted slightly, a patch covering his left eye catching a sliver of light. The mercenaries laughed, a harsh, grating sound that reverberated against the arena walls. They underestimated him, as all had before. Their tactics were simple: overwhelm and extinguish. Their advantage was technological superiority, but the old man had something they could never calculate: experience honed across decades of warfare, a mind trained to predict, adapt, and endure. The first strike came with explosive precision. Plasma bolts streaked toward him, the air hissing with superheated discharge. He pivoted, barely moving, letting the shots glance off the metallic floor, sparks scattering in arcs that danced like fireflies. A mercenary lunged, multi-jointed limbs extended, claws ready to rend flesh. He sidestepped with the fluidity of someone who had learned to move as one with every battlefield environment, his momentum shifting, turning what seemed like frailty into lethal grace. A single glance, a micro-adjustment in stance, and the attacker's momentum hurled it past him, arms snapping against the arena wall with a deafening crack. Around him, the arena itself seemed a co-conspirator. Spiked floors, shifting panels, and sudden energy traps, engineered to punish any misstep, became tools in his arsenal. He moved strategically, guiding his pursuers into misaligned platforms, timed hazards, and collapsing structures. Every step he took was minimal yet precise, conserving energy while exploiting the mercenaries' reliance on brute force. Their confidence wavered. One misstep, a calculated misjudgment on his part, sent a heavily armed assailant crashing into a retractable wall that sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss. The crowd leaned forward, sensing a disruption in the expected rhythm. Aliens whispered among themselves, antennae twitching and voices rising in sharp tones. Observers who had bet on a swift human demise were reconsidering. The old man's breathing was steady, his movements economical, almost lazy, but every motion radiated intent. His eyes scanned, absorbing patterns, weaknesses, and openings. Every scar, every worn edge of his uniform hinted at stories of survival, but he revealed nothing. There was no flourish, no taunt, only the calm certainty of someone who had faced worse and lived to continue. The mercenaries regrouped, their coordination momentarily faltering as they adjusted to an enemy that refused to play by conventional rules. Energy shields were raised, drones activated, traps synchronized, but the old man had anticipated the rhythm of repetition, moving in the interstices of their expectations. Each strike he evaded, each trap he turned against them, was a quiet demonstration of adaptability, a lesson in patience, and a reminder that the galaxy had underestimated humans before. He was not fast in the conventional sense, nor strong in raw physicality, yet he was impossible to pin down, impossible to predict. Every effort to corner him revealed the gap between brute force and lived experience. As the first wave of mercenaries faltered, the old man paused, surveying the battlefield with a measured gaze. Sparks and scorched metal littered the floor, bodies groaning under the weight of their own miscalculations. A flicker of movement in his patched eye betrayed amusement, subtle but undeniable. The alien crowd's expectation of a swift execution had shifted into a tense uncertainty. The human before them was not just surviving, he was orchestrating the flow of the battle. He was waiting for the perfect moment. And when it came, it would not be mercy, it would be calculated, absolute, and unforgettable. The mercenaries regrouped quickly, their confidence tinged with irritation. Their leader barked commands, drones whirring and plasma rifles charging, but the old man's presence remained a quiet anomaly. He didn't move recklessly, didn't shout or taunt, he simply observed, calculating the weight, angle, and timing of every attack. One mercenary lunged with segmented limbs, striking in a coordinated rhythm that would have overwhelmed any ordinary opponent. The old man shifted subtly, using the momentum of the arena itself. A retractable panel flipped, diverting the attacker's trajectory into a floor trap that snapped shut with a hydraulic thud. Sparks arced across the metal, the attacker's limbs pinned awkwardly, his weapons sparking and useless. Others attempted flanking maneuvers, weaving in complex patterns meant to corner him. He anticipated each approach, sidestepping into shadows, using reflective surfaces and angular walls to misdirect the hunters. Their superior technology was rendered ineffective by his adaptability. Their expectations clashed with the unpredictable logic of a human mind trained in centuries of survival. Every attack they launched was a calculation, but the old man's counter-movements exposed gaps they didn't know existed. Energy shields shimmered under failed strikes, plasma bolts missed by millimeters, and a drone was redirected into its own swarm by a precise flick of his wrist. The mercenary's confidence began to fracture. One attempted to rush him, claws extended, only to be caught in a collapsing platform. The floor gave way beneath the alien, sending him sliding helplessly toward an energy emitter. With measured restraint, the old man flicked a piece of debris, activating the emitter. A controlled pulse knocked the attacker unconscious, leaving him sprawled, gasping, unable to comprehend the efficiency with which a seemingly frail human had neutralized a superior opponent. Every observer in the arena began to murmur, antennae twitching and voices rising in shocked disbelief. Despite being outnumbered, the old man remained in command of the battlefield. His movements were minimal but effective. He used the mercenaries' own overconfidence against them. Each strike they attempted was redirected, each tactic countered with precision. When one tried to corner him against a wall of spikes, he used a simple pivot and leverage of momentum to send the alien sliding past, limbs tangling in its own trap. Another overextended with a plasma whip, only to have the old man catch the end and send the energy crackling back toward the attacker. Alien nerves frayed as technology betrayed them under the guidance of a human mind that refused to conform to expected patterns. The arena itself became an extension of his strategy. Moving panels, retractable spikes, energy emitters, and suspended cables were not hazards to avoid. They were instruments in a choreography that made mercenaries' attacks self-defeating. He moved through the environment as if it were an extension of his own body, exploiting every quirk, every flaw designed by alien engineers. One miscalculated strike sent a mercenary flying into a force field, knocking him unconscious while another's energy shield overloaded from a misdirected plasma blast. Each maneuver was executed with surgical precision, showcasing experience that no technology could replicate. The mercenaries' whispers became desperate, their coordination slipping. Fractures appeared in their strategy, as they struggled to adapt to an opponent who refused to engage on conventional terms. The old man observed, measured, and adjusted. He exploited hesitation, punished miscalculations, and manipulated environmental traps with deliberate intent. One by one, their attacks were rendered futile. Their overconfidence, a weapon in itself, had become their undoing. He paused briefly, surveying the aftermath of the first wave. The floor was littered with unconscious bodies, scorched metal, and the remnants of technology pushed beyond its limits. His breathing was steady, calm, unhurried, yet every movement radiated authority. He was not merely surviving, he was orchestrating the battle, turning alien superiority into a liability. The mercenaries had underestimated human ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability. Their tactics, precise and well-coordinated, crumbled under the weight of experience and cunning. The whispers of fear began to ripple through the crowd, anticipation giving way to disbelief. The human before them was no ordinary opponent. He was a force that defied expectation, a calculated storm cloaked in the guise of frailty. The remaining mercenaries adjusted their strategy, desperation sharpening their movements. Their earlier confidence was replaced with uncertainty, patterns that had worked against countless foes now failed against him. The old man's every motion was deliberate, measured, and unhurried, yet each movement carried the weight of lethal intent. He scanned the battlefield, noting positions, trajectories, and weak points. He had endured wars where entire fleets were lost, battles where nothing survived but sheer cunning and instinct. Every scar on his arms, every mark etched across his uniform, was proof of survival, each a silent testament to a life spent mastering unpredictability. One mercenary lunged from above, retractable claws extended, energy lines humming in anticipation. The old man shifted his weight, not a single extra movement wasted, letting gravity and momentum carry the alien past him. The attacker's own energy whip wrapped around a suspended panel, yanking him into the air before the trap closed, pinning him with precise inevitability. Another tried a coordinated assault with a plasma net designed to immobilize, but a flick of the old man's wrist redirected the energy strands toward the floor emitter. The net collapsed, incapacitating the attacker while the human remained untouched. Alien whispers grew louder, confusion and awe threading through their voices. He began to manipulate the arena with intent, turning traps, panels, and energy fields into extensions of his combat strategy. Spinning discs that were meant to impale became shields. Retractable spikes were timed to trap overzealous mercenaries. Energy emitters became tools to overload shields and disarm attackers. Every strike the aliens attempted was countered, every movement he anticipated and redirected. Their coordinated formations unraveled under his calculated responses. A volley of plasma bolts struck a moving panel he had triggered moments before, ricocheting into two mercenaries who were too focused on him to notice the redirected threat. Chaos spread among the attackers, their precision replaced by frantic improvisation, each mistake exploited instantly. The old man's presence commanded the arena without a single gesture of aggression. His reputation, though not yet fully revealed, radiated from the precision and efficiency of his actions. Mercenaries who had believed themselves untouchable now staggered under the reality of an opponent who required no speed, no brute force, only perfect anticipation. His eye beneath the patch scanned, calculating, absorbing every motion, every fluctuation of the arena, every misjudgment. He didn't need to rush. The battlefield bent to his control. A particularly aggressive mercenary attempted to flank him, deploying an array of mini-drones programmed to overwhelm. The old man's hands moved with subtle intent, not striking the drones directly, but using reflected surfaces and the drones' own momentum to guide them into one another. Collisions erupted in sparks, the drones rendered useless while the attacker was caught in the resulting blast. Each calculated move reinforced the growing truth: these were no ordinary tactics, no standard combat routines. They were the product of decades, perhaps centuries, of survival honed into lethal efficiency. Alien murmurs shifted into shocked recognition. Among the spectators, some had begun to identify the patterns of past conflicts, whispers of REAPER brushing through the stands. His reputation, hinted at by scars, symbols on his uniform, and the sheer inevitability of his counters, began to precede him. The mercenaries themselves faltered further, their coordination breaking entirely as they attempted to adapt to an opponent who defied conventional logic. Every misstep, every hesitation, widened the gap between expectation and reality. The old man moved through the chaos with deliberate calm. His breathing remained steady, his focus absolute. He had turned a field of technological superiority into a chessboard where each alien played into his strategy, unaware of the depth of his experience. The arena, once designed to be a killing ground for the weak, became a testament to human ingenuity. In their eyes, the mercenaries and spectators alike saw a force that transcended age, physical limitation, and technology, a living embodiment of tactical perfection, patience, and lethal anticipation. His reputation was growing before the moment of revelation, setting the stage for a truth that would terrify those who believed themselves superior. The arena had fallen into a strained quiet, broken only by the hum of damaged machinery and the labored breaths of the mercenaries still standing. They circled at a distance now, weapons raised but hands unsteady. The old man stood among scorched metal and fallen bodies, posture relaxed, as if the chaos around him were an inconvenience rather than a threat. He reached up slowly, fingers brushing the worn strap along the side of his face. The movement alone drew the attention of every creature watching. Something in that gesture felt deliberate, ceremonial, as though a boundary was about to be crossed. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then he removed the patch. Beneath it was not weakness, nor emptiness, but a scarred socket fitted with an ancient combat implant, dull and scratched, its surface marked by decades of damage and repair. The implant flickered once as it activated, projecting faint tactical overlays that reflected against the arena walls. The mercenaries froze. Recognition rippled through them, visible even in alien expressions shaped by fear rather than understanding. That device was obsolete by modern standards, abandoned centuries ago, yet every veteran in the galaxy knew what it meant. Only one kind of human still wore it. Only one call sign was associated with survivors who refused upgrades because they trusted experience more than technology. A tremor passed through the nearest mercenary. Weapons lowered by instinct rather than choice. The old man's gaze hardened, no longer merely observant but absolute, as if the fight had already ended in his mind. He didn't rush. He didn't posture. He took a single step forward, and the remaining attackers reacted too late. One charged in panic, firing wildly. The old man moved through the shots, not dodging but positioning, letting the mercenary's own weapon overload as it struck an active energy field. The resulting feedback dropped the attacker instantly. Another tried to retreat, triggering emergency thrusters. The old man seized a fallen weapon, not to fire, but to jam it into the arena floor, activating a gravity surge. The mercenary was dragged back, crushed into the metal with a force that silenced him permanently. Every action was precise, restrained, final. This was not rage. This was efficiency refined beyond mercy. Fragments of memory seemed to echo through the arena. Images of shattered fleets, broken alliances, and battlefields where entire species learned to fear a single human designation. The old man moved like a shadow through the last resistance, disabling limbs, severing weapons, and neutralizing threats with practiced certainty. The implant guided nothing. It merely confirmed what he already knew. His movements were not guided by machines, but by pattern recognition carved into his mind through centuries of war. The mercenaries collapsed one after another, not from superior firepower, but from the realization that survival was no longer an option. Those still conscious watched him with something close to reverence, or terror so deep it resembled respect. This was not a warrior proving himself. This was a legend correcting a mistake. When the last opponent fell, the old man stood alone. He looked down at the discarded patch in his hand, its fabric worn thin, then let it drop to the arena floor. Around him, alien spectators remained silent, their understanding complete. Humans were not dangerous because they were stronger or faster. They were dangerous because they endured. They adapted. They remembered. The name passed through the stands without announcement, without amplification, yet it carried across the arena like a verdict. Reaper. Not a threat. Not a boast. A fact, long ignored, now painfully remembered. The arena doors remained sealed long after the fighting ended, as if the structure itself hesitated to release what stood at its center. Broken weapons lay scattered across the floor, alien bodies unmoving, their defeat undeniable. The old man walked through them without looking down, boots scraping lightly against scorched metal. There was no triumph in his posture, no satisfaction. He moved like someone leaving a place already forgotten. Above him, spectators sat frozen, their cultures built on domination now forced to confront a simpler truth they had ignored for centuries. Medical drones hovered uncertainly at the arena's edge, unable to classify the scene. Systems flagged the old man as critically aged, physically compromised, statistically impossible. None of it mattered. He stopped near the exit threshold and turned once, not toward the fallen mercenaries, but toward the watching masses. His uncovered eye held no hatred, only a calm finality that carried more weight than any threat. This had never been about survival. It had been correction. A reminder delivered with precision rather than cruelty. Whispers spread faster than data packets. Species who had never feared extinction now understood vulnerability. The call sign echoed through private channels, black archives unlocking records long buried or intentionally erased. Entire campaigns traced back to a single constant: a human who refused command, refused ceremony, and refused to die. They had called him primitive, obsolete, too old to matter. That assumption now lay broken alongside the mercenaries who had believed it. The old man crossed the threshold as the arena finally disengaged its locks. Gravity stabilized. Emergency lights dimmed. No escort followed him. None dared. Outside, a narrow corridor stretched toward a hangar bay filled with confiscated vessels. He walked past them all until he reached one small, unmarked craft bearing scars far older than any modern hull. It powered on at his approach, recognizing him without question. Machines remembered him even when empires did not. As the craft lifted away, the arena faded into the distance, its legend already reshaping the balance of power. Contracts were cancelled across the galaxy within hours. Arenas closed. Mercenary guilds dissolved or went silent. Not out of mercy or fear of retribution, but because certainty had been shattered. If one human could dismantle technological supremacy through experience alone, then none of their systems were absolute. None of their dominance was permanent. In distant halls of governance, the event was debated without resolution. Some argued for erasure, others for appeasement. None could deny the conclusion staring back at them through corrupted footage and eyewitness terror. Humanity was not dangerous because of its numbers or weapons. Humanity was dangerous because it remembered every mistake and survived long enough to learn from them. Time itself had become their ally. The old man did not look back as the stars stretched into motion. His part was finished. Others would hear the story and misunderstand it as myth, or exaggeration, or propaganda. That was acceptable. Legends were not meant to be understood, only respected. Somewhere, another conflict would rise, another force would believe itself untouchable, and another lesson would be required. Until then, the galaxy would remember what it had tried to forget. Humans endure. Humans adapt. And when pushed into darkness long enough, they do not break. They become something worse.